Daniel Carter woke before the alarm rang, the way he always did. Years of responsibility had trained his body to rise early, even when sleep came late. He lay still for a moment, staring at the cracked ceiling of their small apartment, listening to the soft, steady breathing coming from the next room. Today mattered. He quietly got out of bed and moved to the kitchen, where a single envelope lay on the table, his final notice from the landlord. Daniel didn't open it. He already knew what it said. What mattered more was the neatly pressed resume beside it, and the blazer hanging carefully over the chair. He had borrowed that blazer from a friend 2 years ago. It didn't fit perfectly, but it made him look like someone who belonged in important places. "Daddy?" Daniel turned to see his 6-year-old daughter, Lily, standing in the doorway, rubbing her eyes, her hair tangled from sleep. "Morning, sunshine," he said gently, kneeling down. "Did I wake you?" She shook her head. "I heard you moving. Is today the big day?" Daniel smiled, though his chest felt tight. "Yes, the big one." Lily beamed. "That means pancakes." He laughed softly. "That definitely means pancakes." As the batter sizzled on the stove, Daniel helped Lily into her favorite blue dress. She talked excitedly about school, about a spelling test, about a classmate who had shared crayons with her. Daniel listened carefully, nodding, memorizing her voice the way he always did, like he was afraid one day the sound might disappear. While Lily ate, Daniel checked his phone again. "Babysitter, I'm so sorry, Daniel. My son has a fever. I can't come today." His heart sank. He stared at the message longer than necessary, hoping it would somehow change. It didn't. The interview was in less than an hour. He had waited 3 months for this opportunity. Hale Tech Industries didn't just offer a job. It offered stability, health insurance, a future. Daniel knelt in front of Lily. "Sweetheart, I need to ask you something important." She looked up at him, serious now. "Okay, the babysitter can't come today. Would you mind coming with me for a little while? I promise I'll try to find somewhere quiet for you." Lily didn't hesitate. "I'll be very quiet, Daddy. I can draw." Guilt washed over him. "You shouldn't have to." She reached out and squeezed his hand. "It's okay. We're a team, remember?" Daniel swallowed hard and nodded. "Yes, we are." The building rose above them like a wall of glass and steel. Lily tilted her head back, eyes wide. "Is this where you'll work?" Daniel looked up too. "If we're very lucky." Inside, the lobby gleamed. Everything smelled clean and expensive. People in sharp suits walked past them without looking down. Lily's hand tightened in his. At the reception desk, a woman glanced at Lily, then at Daniel's resume. "I'm here for the systems analyst interview," Daniel said calmly. Her smile faltered. "Oh, I see." She lowered her voice. "Children aren't usually allowed during interviews." "I understand," Daniel replied, "but I had no alternative today." "She'll sit quietly." The receptionist hesitated, then picked up the phone. The waiting room was cold. Lily sat beside Daniel, coloring carefully inside the lines of a flower. He adjusted his blazer and rehearsed answers in his head, reminding himself that skill mattered more than circumstance. The door opened. "Daniel Carter?" He stood. "That's me." Inside the interview room sat 3 people. 2 barely looked up. One glanced at Lily, eyebrows raised. "We weren't informed you'd be bringing a child," the woman at the center said. "My apologies," Daniel replied. "I didn't have childcare today, but I assure you—" "We'll keep this brief," she interrupted. Questions followed, but they weren't about his experience. "Not really. How flexible is your schedule? Do you foresee any personal distractions? Can you commit to long hours without interruption?" Daniel answered honestly, calmly. He spoke of efficiency, remote solutions, problem-solving. But he could feel it slipping away. Finally, the woman folded her hands. "We need someone who can give this role their full attention." Daniel understood the sentence beneath the words. "I see," he said quietly. The interview ended early. In the hallway, Lily looked up at him. "Did you do good?" Daniel forced a smile. "I did my best." As they walked back toward the elevators, Lily tugged his sleeve. I'm sorry I came. Daniel stopped immediately and knelt in front of her. No, never say that. You are never the problem. She hugged him tightly. That was when the lights flickered. A loud alarm echoed through the building. Screens in the lobby flashed red. People began shouting into phones, running past them. What's happening? Lily asked, her voice small. Daniel's eyes narrowed as he studied the screen. Lines of code, error loops, familiar patterns. It looks like, he murmured, more to himself than anyone else. Employees rushed by, panic written on their faces. Daniel stood there, forgotten, rejected, yet suddenly seeing something no one else seemed to notice. And for the first time that day, hope stirred again. The alarm didn't stop. It pulsed through the building in sharp, impatient bursts, echoing off the glass walls and polished floors. Red warning messages flickered across the giant digital screen in the lobby, drawing a crowd of anxious employees. System failure. Again, someone muttered. This can't be happening now. Another voice snapped. The Orion shipment is scheduled to go live in 10 minutes. Daniel stood still, his hand resting protectively on Lily's shoulder. His eyes moved quickly across the scrolling text, absorbing the information the way a musician reads notes. The error codes weren't random. They followed a pattern, one he had seen before. Daddy, Lily whispered, sensing the tension. Is something broken? Yes, Daniel said softly, but not the way they think. Nearby, a group of engineers argued in low, urgent voices. We patched that loop twice already, one said. Then why is it still crashing? Because the patch isn't reaching the root server, Daniel murmured without thinking. The word slipped out quietly, but not quietly enough. A man in a wrinkled dress shirt turned toward him. Dark circles hung under his eyes, and his ID badge read Ethan Brooks, Senior Systems Engineer. What did you say? Ethan asked, half annoyed, half desperate. Daniel hesitated. He didn't want to overstep. He had already been told, in clear but polite terms, that he didn't belong here. I'm sorry, Daniel said. I didn't mean to interrupt. It just looks like the routing table is stuck in a cascading loop. You're fixing the symptoms, not the source. Ethan stared at him for a second. Then he looked back at the screen. His jaw tightened. That's impossible, he said automatically. We isolated the loop hours ago. Daniel shook his head. You isolated one, but there's a secondary mirror that keeps feeding it back. Every restart triggers the same failure. Silence. Ethan's fingers flew across his tablet. His expression changed, not to confidence, but to fear. Who are you? He asked quietly. Daniel Carter. I was here for an interview. Ethan let out a humorless laugh. Of course you were. Another engineer joined them. Ethan, the client is threatening to pull out. If this shipment fails, we're done. Ethan looked at Daniel again, this time with urgency. Can you prove it? Daniel nodded. I can fix it. There was no time for pride or protocol. Ethan made a quick decision. Come with me, he said, and bring her too. They hurried through a set of security doors into the operations floor. Rows of monitors glowed with error messages. Voices overlapped in rising panic. Lily sat down on a chair near the wall, pulling out her crayons. I'll be quiet, she whispered, as if reminding herself. Daniel gave her a grateful smile, then stepped forward. Show me the core access, he said. An engineer hesitated. He's not authorized. Ethan snapped. Neither is losing the company. Access was granted. Daniel's fingers moved fast but steady, tracing the logic of the system like a map. He ignored the noise around him. The ticking clock, the weight of 100 anxious stares. There, he said. You see this? Ethan leaned closer. That's hidden. It wasn't meant to be. Someone duplicated the failover route during the last update. It keeps calling itself. Can you stop it? Someone asked. Daniel typed one final command. The alarms went silent. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then the red screens turned green. Data streams stabilized. Notifications cleared one by one. A collective breath was released. We're back online, an engineer whispered. Phones stopped ringing. Messages popped up, clients confirming successful connections. The Orion shipment was live. Ethan laughed, running a hand through his hair. We've been fighting this for 3 days. Daniel leaned back from the keyboard, exhausted but calm. Sometimes stepping away helps you see the loop. Lily looked up. Did you fix it, Daddy? Yes, Daniel said, walking over to her. I think we did. She smiled proudly and held up her drawing. A picture of 2 stick figures holding hands in front of a tall building. That's us, she said. Before Daniel could respond, the doors burst open. Heavy footsteps echoed across the room. Conversations died instantly. A man in a tailored suit entered, his presence commanding the space without a word. Someone tell me, he said sharply, who just saved my company. Ethan turned slowly and pointed. That would be him, he said. The man we rejected this morning. The CEO's eyes locked onto Daniel, and everything changed. The room fell completely silent. The man who had just entered didn't need an introduction. His tailored suit, calm authority, and piercing gaze said enough. Richard Hale, the CEO of Hale Tech Industries, stood at the center of the operations floor, taking the stabilized monitors, the exhausted engineers, and finally, the stranger standing near the wall with a small child beside him. His eyes narrowed slightly. Explain, he said. Ethan cleared his throat. Sir, the system failure wasn't what we thought. Daniel here identified a cascading routing loop buried in a mirrored failover path. He fixed it in under 10 minutes. Richard turned to Daniel. You work here? No, sir, Daniel replied honestly. I was here for an interview this morning. Richard raised an eyebrow. Daniel nodded. It ended early. A ripple of discomfort passed through the room. Richard looked around, sensing the tension. Why? Before Daniel could respond, Lily tugged gently at his hand. Because of me, she said softly. Every head turned. Richard crouched slightly, so he was at eye level with her. And who are you? Lily, she answered. I'm his daughter. Richard straightened slowly. Something unreadable crossed his face. You brought your child to an interview? Daniel spoke calmly. My child care canceled at the last minute. I had no other choice. And because of that, Richard said slowly, you were turned away. No one answered. They didn't need to. Richard took Daniel's resume from Ethan's tablet and read it carefully, this time truly reading it. His expression shifted from curiosity to disbelief. You've solved 3 large-scale system failures in your career, Richard said. You redesigned logistics frameworks other companies couldn't touch. Why wasn't this man hired on the spot? Ms. Thompson from HR, who had rushed in moments earlier, swallowed. We were concerned about long-term availability. Richard looked at her. Availability, he repeated. Yet when our entire operation was minutes from collapse, he was the only one available enough to fix it. The words hung heavy. Richard turned back to Daniel. Why didn't you walk away when you were rejected? Daniel glanced down at Lily, then back up. Because I recognize the problem. And because when something is broken, you fix it, whether you're invited or not. That answer seemed to strike something deep inside Richard. He walked toward the glass wall, overlooking the city, silent for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was quieter. I built this company from nothing, he said. I miss birthdays. I miss funerals. I told myself it was worth it. He turned around. But today, I almost lost everything because I forgot what actually matters. He looked at Lily. Do you know why your dad is special? She shook her head. Because he chose you, and still found a way to show up. Lily smiled shyly. Richard faced the room. This company does not fail because of systems. It fails when we stop seeing people. He turned back to Daniel. I won't insult you by offering the same position you applied for. Daniel stiffened slightly. Sir, I'm offering you something better, Richard continued. A senior problem-solving role with full autonomy, flexible hours, remote access, and authority to redesign how we work, not just our code, but our culture. The room buzzed. Daniel hesitated. I need to be honest, he said. I can't stay late every night. I leave at 5 to pick up my daughter. Richard nodded. Then the company will adjust. Miss Thompson looked shocked. Sir, Richard raised a hand. Effective immediately, Hale Tech will introduce flexible schedules, remote options, and family support policies. Talent doesn't disappear when life gets complicated. Daniel's eyes burned. Why? He asked quietly. Richard answered without hesitation. Because today you reminded me who I was before I forgot. Months passed. Hale Tech didn't just recover, it flourished. Productivity rose. Turnover dropped. Parents stopped hiding their personal lives. People spoke openly, worked smarter, and trusted leadership again. Daniel became known not for his title, but for his calm presence. When systems broke, he didn't panic. He listened. Every afternoon at exactly 5 o'clock, he shut down his computer and left. One evening, Richard watched from his office as Daniel held Lily's hand, laughing as they walked toward the exit. What's your rush? Richard asked later, half smiling. School play, Daniel replied. Front row. Richard nodded. Wouldn't miss it. That night, as Daniel sat in the audience watching Lily wave nervously from the stage, he realized something important. He had never needed to choose between being a good father and being successful. The right place would always allow him to be both. And the biggest problem he had solved that day was never system failure. It was reminding a powerful company that human hearts are not bugs to be fixed, but values to be protected. Sometimes life doesn't reject us because we aren't good enough. It does so because the right people haven't looked closely yet. This story reminds us that true talent, dignity, and love for family can never be measured by appearances or circumstances. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more real-life inspired, heartwarming stories.